Hello there and welcome to this vlog of August 2022. Today's video is something I've deliberated about making over the last 48 hours because obviously last week we had quite a bit of drama in the BattleTech community. I waded in to that debate as well, as is my right, and I did it in what I'd consider a very objective, respectful way, and I gave my opinion. Also, just before we continue, thank you for all the commentators on that video. I had a very good discussion actually with quite a few of you. Most of it was very, very reasonable, and good points were made by all. Well, not all, some, typical internet type trolley people on there, but that's fine. We all know what we're in for on the internet, so we can ignore those. But generally speaking, whatever your opinion on it was, most people made their opinion, maturely and without resorting to shouting at one another. So, good to see. But because all that was so negative, and even though I kind of tried to portray it in almost like this sounds quite pretentious, but like in a professional light in regards like why I think Catalyst did what they did. But what I wanted to do this week, almost to kind of try and affirm up the positive aspects of the community, was just to put somebody over massively, even at my tiny little channel level, who's probably had more influence on me than any other one thing across the BattleTech IP ever. I include authors in that. I include the tabletop game, but I need to talk about something before I get into this. As I said previously, I've been deliberating about whether or not to do this actual video because I think you've got to be careful that you don't come across as like sycophantic or weird or anything like that. The reason why I am doing it is because I hold this person in quite high levels of admiration, and I think over the last 2 weeks, I can imagine that they've gone through quite a lot of horrible things and have quite a lot of pressure put on them by either side of the debate raging over the situation with like boycotting Catalyst, and I can imagine that gets very, very wearing. And, I suppose this is almost like an ode to that person's work and how important I think they are in the community and just how much I respect them for not just, taking a heavy stance on something, because they are a very influential, prominent person. And I know that either side of the divide would like to see them weighed in, but I just would like to say, if they, again, I don't expect him to ever see this, but if he does, how much I respect him for just, again, that neutrality and that calm head, because I think sometimes like we forget that the personas or the people that we like engage with who are like well known, especially in like a niche community like the BattleTech community, where you've only got like tens of thousands of people who really engage with it. But for someone who's not like naturally driven to have like celebrity status, which I'm sure the person I'm going to talk about, that's probably how he feels about it, probably freaks him out massively that there is like community pressure on him to deliver on content and to make his voice heard and things like that. So again, I just want to make that clear. This isn't some kind of fanboy episode or anything. It's just a mark of my respect for this person and what they've done for the community over the last, for a long time, but I suppose publicly over the last few years. And why, if you are trying to kind of engage with him and or give him heat, I think you really need to kind of reassess what you are doing online, because it's not your place to tell anybody what to think or how to act. That goes for everybody. I was willing to give my opinion on it, and then for one, I don't mean this because I didn't say anything controversial really, but like I was willing to kind of suffer the consequences of that. So the trolls could have picked up on it, and I could have had hate spam comments coming on the on the YouTube comment section or whatever, and frankly, I don't really care. It's a little bit beneath me, stuff like that, and I'm pretty, I said last week, I work in legal PR, so if I don't have a thick skin, ain't no one has a thick skin. But please do keep in mind that people come in at many different levels of thick skin. Some people are quite happy to just wade into arguments and fight the good cause however they see it. Some people, that would cause massive mental health problems for them, and it's not anyone's place to say to any other individual, you've got to come and fight in my war. I kind of believe that on every level. Like, I don't, it's why, if you volunteer to be a soldier, for instance, and that's what you want to volunteer for, great. I'm massively against the idea of conscription, though, because I think it's just, you are asking another human being, in that case, to fight and potentially die on your cause. We now do it with like internet campaigns and causes. Like, you've got to have an opinion. You've got to say what you think. Some people will be very, very. I don't use this word loosely either. They'll be terrified to do that because it will probably like cause it a massive like imbalance in their life. So again, the reason I'm doing this is just to kind of go through some of the reasons why I think this person is quite a brilliant person in a lot of ways. Of course, I'm talking about Tex from Tex Talks BattleTech. I mean, if you don't know who Tex is and you're watching my video, then somebody needs to call the YouTube police. So I'm sure you all know who Tex is. He is responsible for dozens and dozens of just incredible videos on BattleTech. I'm going to put this, obviously, when I talk about stuff like this, I can only talk about it from a personal perspective. And I've already said that he's probably the most inspirational thing in regards to my BattleTech like life that's ever happened. If I had to list it, I would certainly put Tex top of that. I'd probably put the old cartoon second. I'd put the tabletop game third. Then I'd probably put Mech Commander. I won't continue going down that list. It'll be pretty standard, obviously. So there are then like, for me, like the books of BattleTech, which I do love the books, but because it's such a visual gaming thing, like I'd much rather read like a TRO rather than a BattleTech novel. But I love people like Michael Stackpole, for instance. He's a great author. So like it's different for everyone. Like some people's top 10 would be just like a list of all the authors or whatever. For me, though, when I really kind of got back into BattleTech a few years ago, during our like renaissance, so to speak, I discovered the Tex Talk Battle series quite early, and I can only describe it as this. It changed what I consider. Well, I had like a 2-dimensional understanding of BattleTech at the time because we didn't have the Catalyst Kickstarters when Tex started talking about BattleTech. So things were still like, they were very old, like metal sculpts, or you were using cardboard standees. Obviously we had the games, but I'm not a big Mech Warrior player, so this is kind of probably in around the time that the Harebrained Schemes was released, so that was obviously a massive influencing factor as well. But Tex, to me, just breathed life into something that I've loved since I was a kid. Obviously I fell out of it for years because of life and came back into it, but I think that the videos that Tex does, I really can't tell you how important I think they are in terms of the community in general, and I'll just describe that from a modern media perspective. Now, or in the kind of the current kind of culture, because we are so like just fired upon all the time, whether it's like advertising or just look at like Netflix. I mean, I have a Netflix account and I can never ever find anything on there to watch because there is just so much damn content. I know there's kind of theories being written on that about like how too much choice can affect you as a consumer. So companies are kind of acutely aware of that. But when you're talking about like the noise of everyday life. Like, how much time do you actually have to sit and like read like a BattleTech TR or something like that? I think most people will do it like before bed. And again, it's, as much as, I mean, I love that format. I love to sit and read, but younger people especially are now so visual just because they just get absolutely bombarded with thousands of images and advertisements, everything else every day. And somebody like Tex has, and when I really need to specify this as well. When I say Tex, I almost am talking about a collective of people here. Obviously, Tex is the front man. I think he writes kind of the scripts for the content, but he's got like an array of he's like a stable of talent behind him, whether it's like editors or illustrators or artists, and he really is kind of a binding force in the community. I mean, he does so much for the community. He does a lot of fundraising, and I think but beyond that, again, I'll try to keep this to the BattleTech specific, in terms of why I think he's so important. He, to me, delivered like what BattleTech has never really been able to do, which is a comprehensive life bringing exercise of what is a really wonderful, intricate, beautiful IP as well. I mean, I'm not just talking about like the mechs either. The whole BattleTech universe is just so intricate. There are so many like different planets, and there's obviously things right up from like space travel down to like naval warfare and things like that. It's so intricate and so massive, and everything that we had for so many years was just on that page. It was the picture, which is great. Again, for imagination's sake, it's brilliant, especially for people around my age. Like I'm, in my very late 30s. I'll be 40 quite soon. But I think a lot of people feel like or the younger fan base, they would really be able to connect with it if they could see that television series. And obviously we'll always point them in the direction of the old cartoon, which when I was a lad, I was I don't know, maybe like 12, 13 when that came out. I thought that the CGI stuff was amazing. You show that to a 12, 13-year-old now, they'll laugh in your face. Although, I mean, don't get me wrong, I think the cartoon actually still really does stand up when it comes to like the scripting and the story and the characters. It's actually quite a sophisticated Saturday morning cartoon by a lot of respects. But it's very dated and it's very of its time. And that was the only thing for years that we had to point out with BattleTech. Obviously, you had 80s films, was it Robot Jocks and things like that? Well, that's not the BattleTech IP. You also had then recently the emergence of the Pacific Rim films, again, mechs, but not BattleTech. So that kind of, there is then a whole array of like Japanese like cartoons and manga and stuff like that, or Gundam. I mean, I don't venture into any of that, but there's lots and lots of things. None of it is BattleTech though. None of it deals with the the Steiners and the Davians and the clans and things like that, apart from obviously the old dated cartoon. And what Tex was able to do, and obviously he went from like a point where he was making like, I don't know, 10-15 minute pretty snappy quick videos on mechs and different mechs, to literally like almost like feature length films with like a full like narrative about how or why a specific thing was done in the BattleTech world that resulted in this mech becoming very prominent. He also did what I would consider his like pick any great work of art from any great artist, or their main piece that they'll kind of be remembered for. I think that the series that he did on like the Ameris Civil War right up into the like the formation of the clans. I think it was called From Exodus to Elementals. It was like a real long play. I think that's across like 3 or 4 like quite long videos. Was just like, I mean, I remember watching that and I knew the subject matter, right? Because I've read the stories, I've read a lot of the books. Obviously, they reference like Ameris a lot, but to see him depicted in that way, which is a very accurate depiction, showed you kind of where he and where Kerensky, especially Kerensky, kind of sit in the wider narrative, why they're so important. And I think, like, you know, for older BattleTech fans who have been in and around this IP for years, you'll just know that, right? Like, that's something you've grown up with. But for new players, of not just players, for new people getting into the, whether it's like the computer games or if they're just interested in the story or whatever, Tex is just such a brilliant like gateway into that world. I think he picks his subject matter very, very carefully. Of it, like the American Civil War, for instance, which is the, you know, if you're watching this and you play like a lot of Warhammer 40,000, it's really kind of like the Horus Heresy of the BattleTech IP. It's that thing that happens like way in the past that's really traumatic and lots of people die and it's horrifying. But out of that, the entire like universe that we are then centered around, it's what everyone traces back like to the cause of what's going on. I suppose that there are kind of two major events in BattleTech. So I'd probably say like the formation of the Star League as well was like super important. So slightly different to 40k, but still that like decades long war that just like consumed the galaxy. That's something that both IPs share. And that, again, you know, you can go online and you'll find 40 people doing really good videos on Warhammer 40k because it's so prominent. There's so many people out there discussing the lore. But for BattleTech, yes, you get people discussing it, but Tex to me brought it into just a different sphere of analysis. I mean, and I've been critical about things like this before, but there are people like BattleTech channels where they'll literally just read from Sana. I roll my eyes at that one. Fair enough, whatever. But if you've got like 20 people doing that, it's just really like it's not good. I don't think for the community. It just adds a lot of clutter. What Tex does though, he brings it all into a crescendo. He puts theory in there, and when I mean theory, like he'll talk about like what is I say historical for obviously for the BattleTech universe when it's set. The American Civil War is historical. He'll take that history and he'll just make it, and I mean this in the best possible way. He will put his own like idea on it and what it means, and that's just that to me is like an act of brilliance because he's obviously a very smart guy as well, so he's able to kind of bring it beyond the confines of what he's just written on the page. He's able to kind of read between those lines, give that extra detail, that extra flavour to what's going on. He especially does it on the on the American Civil War up into the formation of the clans. When he's talking about things like the Black Watch, for instance, the Black Watch are really quite a prominent part of BattleTech. They are the kind of precursors to Clan Jade Falcon. And I can feel like you can hear it in his voice because he loves the Black Watch so much. But then there's the tragedy that they're the ones who formulate the people in BattleTech that he really doesn't like. Similar to me, he doesn't like the clans. There's that added tragedy in there, and I think you can almost hear that in his voice, and you can feel it on the in the script that it's like a Shakespearean play outing. I always felt like that. That's why BattleTech's such a wonderful story, and the people that wrote that originally were so clever. In terms of like Kerensky being the hero and trying to do this really honourable thing, but then it all just turned into this like monstrosity that came back and like haunted the inner sphere and killed like a lot of people and ended up in this massive tragedy that was the clan invasion. But it's just that irony of history, and that's something that I think Tex really gets. It's because he's obviously a student of history, so he knows the kind of the way that it works. He has like an understanding of, we see that in our own history, and he's able to apply that. I don't mean this in an arrogant way, but I think my mindset is like that a little bit as well. For instance, I read BattleTech novels or source books, and I've done some videos on stuff like this back before I had a pretty decent camera where at least the lip syncing was working, because it certainly didn't on that video. I think I did a video once on like how the I can't remember what it was now. It was sort of like a historic. Was it the Peace of Westphalia, wasn't it? I think is what I was talking about. And how that kind of related to like the BattleTech universe, and like videos like that or ideas like that. I think it's quite interesting to do, and it's that like and I didn't start this YouTube channel trying to emulate Tex, because quite simply I can't. I don't edit videos. I don't want to spend like untold amount of hours editing and whatever else. I don't have time for that. So for me, this is just like an extension of my hobby, and just for me to kind of talk about like a specific topic or a subject that I'm interested in regards BattleTech. Thus far, I think it's like, I'd say that I've covered a lot of topics that I wanted to. I've still got a lot of other topics that I want to do, but from when I see how kind of Tex, I mean, he'll usually only do like 2 or 3 videos a year, and they're such like gold standard. They're so interesting and so like elaborate. I think from my perspective, I was just like, I think we can add, and I hope maybe you could do this if you were interested. Go and make a YouTube channel and talk about BattleTech, but make it, like at least slightly like out of the box or out of the confines of like reading off of Sana. And I think Tex has kind of given us the confidence to do that, just because he goes into such like elaborate detail. But again, you don't need to do what Tex does in regards to the vast amount of time that he will spend on this. So just look at me, like, and I'm, again, for me, this is an extension of my hobby. I'm not doing this for clicks or likes or financial reasons. I do it because I enjoy talking about BattleTech. But it's not, it's good to get that traction, I think, in the community. It's good to get people talking about it and ideas spread around. And I'm just, again, going back to the initial points that I was making about, Tex in regards a character. I really respect the fact that he is such a unifying figure. Again, he might hate that. Well, if he ever saw this, he might cringe. But I think it's just so important that we've got people like that who have like a cool head, or are willing to kind of not just make like, quite, I'm not saying radical decisions in like political sense, but I mean like who's just like, oh, I don't agree with something, and now I'm going to kind of get on my soapbox and start shouting about it. I just don't think that kind of attitude is healthy for anyone, whether it's that individual or whether it's the people who are kind of buying into that kind of mindset. Tex, to me, just shows like a great deal of integrity. I would, again, I've never spoken to him. I've never, I don't know him personally, but obviously, because I'm in the community on a relatively peripheral level in regards that I'm in Britain, I'm not in America, so I don't get to go to all the conventions and the tournaments, stuff like that. Would do if I lived in America for sure, but I don't. But I still know a lot of BattleTech community members, and I know a lot of people who know Tex, and everyone just universally says that he is the, I don't know, like I say, he's like almost like the statesman of BattleTech in some ways. Like he's such a guiding light, I think, for what the community represents, how we should act, how we should kind of, position ourselves without being too. Again, I'm not saying, again, have an opinion, that's fine. You don't have to have an opinion and use it to beat somebody over the head with, though. And I think I think Tex has like a podcast, things like that. I've never really listened to that. I've only kind of, delved into his BattleTech work. But again, I've heard people say that on the podcast, he always kind of really kind of pushes the respect agenda. He's like, don't start bullying people or committing to bad behaviour. We leave that kind of stuff to Carmine Gold. It's not the stuff of the BattleTech community. So I just, again, as a way of just kind of showing my respect to him, really, I thought it was... the timing to do this video was probably quite good, given what's gone on with the community and how much it's divided the community. Final thoughts on that division. This will pass for sure. BattleTech has faced some insane problems in its past. It's nearly been stamped out multiple times. We're on a real wave of a renaissance here, though, and nothing's going to stop that. Even if you are watching this and you are feeling that you want to boycott Catalyst, which again is your right. I think you are wrong to do that, but again, it's your right as a customer to do that and put your money wherever you want to put it. But the BattleTech universe, the IP, the game, I mean, it means a lot to me. I mean, I can only say that subjectively, and I don't like anything that threatens that. And I have a lot of admiration for people who are involved with a community and try to be that community like hub, or that like building, that positive building point, or create wonderful content or whatever else. And I think like if you were gonna just try to, again, I mean, I always point people into Tex's direction if they're getting into BattleTech. Like if I do a lot of new player games. Like I usually run new games every, well, obviously not during COVID, but since COVID lockdowns have finished, I usually run like 2 a month. And you can always tell, because BattleTech's quite a niche game, and some people play it and like, yeah, not for me. But if I get like maybe that like 1 in 4 people who try it and love it, and they'll be like, it's a really interesting universe. The first thing I say is, look, when you've got some time, and if you've got a YouTube account, just go and find the Black Pants Legion and go through their like catalogue of data. Start with the Ameris Civil War and just go from there. Or if they've been playing with a certain mech that I know Tex has done a video on, I'll be like, yeah, just go and watch that, because they do it in such a way where it's incredibly informative, it's entertaining. I mean, they put like the adverts at the back of the videos, which I absolutely love. So many people have copied that as well. I see that on so many like different channels, and people like mimic it, but nobody can do it like Tex and team. Just their levels of like satire on that, and I mean he's now kind of famous, I think, for kind of giving us like phrases like "pay your bills," and he's like I say, he breathed such life. Is that even a word? He has given such life to BattleTech, and I think he's like, again, I don't know how he feels about this, because he's obviously a very private person. I think he's quite well known for never disclosing his like identity, or he won't do like videos like this, for instance, where he's on camera. He's always got the little like mustachioed picture up if he does like conference calls to do with BattleTech, which I've seen him on quite a few times, like with Catalyst Games Labs. So it probably freaks him out a little bit that he's such an inspirational voice within the community. But I just again want to emphasize how glad I am that it was him that kind of got that golden point. It could have been so much worse. I mean, that sounds awful, doesn't it? That sounds like I'm criticizing. It's what I mean by that is like we could have had someone who was very divisive in that role, and they really could have rung the death knell for Catalyst if they'd have like started to really wade into like the political aspects to what's gone on. Or they were like hypercritical. So like when Catalyst got delayed on like the last Kickstarter, they might have put the boot in, caused more people to get angry, caused more division in the community, things like that. Obviously, in Tex's position, I've never seen him do anything like that. He sounds like a very understanding, mature, respectful person, and just coupled with the fact that he delivers the best content we've ever seen across the community. So, what a guy. And I think it's again, for my part, I just want him to know how much I respect him, and like really just appreciate his work, what he does as like an individual as well, and all the kind of community fundraising that he does, and just really how lucky we are to have him. I've heard him talk before about like the darker things. I think he's very public about this. I think he talks quite a bit about his mental health. That's obviously the priority. So again, not that I'm giving him advice, but I think he has done so much for the community. If he ever felt that it was like just coming down on him, or there was like something happening that was hurting his mental health, I hope he would have the good sense to step away from it. Again, because he doesn't strike me as someone who set himself up for some kind of celebrity, even if it's in like a niche community like this. So mental health does come first. And again, nothing much else to say really. If you don't watch Tex's videos, then I have no idea what you're doing on my channel. Go and watch them. Watch them numerous times. Like the amount of knowledge and data and not just for BattleTech either, but I think the way that he kind of delivers it on so many different fronts, it's like it really is like watching a really like well done documentary, and entertaining as well. I mean, he knows when to do the drama thing, he knows when to do the comedy. It's just they are just very very great films, and I think that, I mean, in my mind, if someone said to me like, give me your best media over the last like 10 years, whether it's like film, TV, YouTube stuff, Tex's stuff for me would absolutely be in the top three. And I'm saying that almost objectively as well, like outside of being like a BattleTech fan, I think that just how it's just a couple of guys, or like what, 3 or 4 guys, I think it is. You know, people will be doing like the audio, the editing, and they just make such beautiful, comprehensive works that they just resonate so much. And like I said, for me, like seeing that in BattleTech and seeing that like that reaffirmation of what I love, and seeing it like that someone else loves that as well and has that passion for it. I mean, it really is incredible, and it just gives me such hope that, you know, that Tex will spawn maybe 5 other kind of Texes over the next like decade. You know, like younger people within the BattleTech community, maybe people who will go and try and fight for that TV show. They are going to be the ones that saw Tex's videos as a 15, 16-year-old, because maybe they didn't read many books, but they got into it, you know, visually through what Tex is doing. And I think, you know, in several years when we're looking back on this, I mean, for me, I would say that really 3 things saved BattleTech. The first one is obvious. That's obviously Catalyst's actions over the last few years. You know, the Kickstarters were a massive success. The new miniatures are phenomenal. I have heard criticism of like the models and stuff like that. I just, you know, I don't buy into any of that. I know I've heard people say stuff, for instance, like, oh, you know, in 10 years these models aren't going to hold up. I couldn't agree any less with that. I think this is kind of the defining moment of BattleTech in regards to the like the tabletop game, and I think we're going to see that over the next 3 years. The second thing was, and actually, just to add on the Catalyst thing, obviously they won the legal beef as well with Harmony Gold. Although I know that was very complex, and it wasn't just them. It was a big like legal case. But you know, Catalyst were kind of. I actually heard Catalyst did a very good interview. All the kind of top people at Catalyst spoke to Wolfnet Radio. I think maybe like last week or the week before, and they were talking about the lawsuit. And I can't remember who said it, but made the point of they bet the company on that. You know, literally, you know, they were at the roulette table and pushed all in on a colour, because if they have lost that, there would be no BattleTech, and they had to do it because without that there would be no kind of resurgence of the IP. That then kind of spawned things like the second point, what I'll talk about here in what saved BattleTech, which was for me anyway, was the Harebrained Schemes game. That was, I think, why I say that, it's not for everyone, because most people in BattleTech are really kind of more on the Mech Warrior side, but there's a good chunk of us, and like me, that really only like the strategy game. So I really am like a Mech Commander player, so for me to get like a turn-based BattleTech game of that like level, and how beautiful it looked, and all the mechs had their like wonderful designs, and you know, they put a lot of effort into that. They'd really tried to make that into the BattleTech universe. It feels absolutely authentic. I think, I mean, that when I look back now, I think in terms of what drew me back in, like if you look at Texas the Gateway, I think what really drew me back in was playing like that for hours and hours, and just really getting like associated with the IP. And the third thing, obviously, I've just talked about, that's Tex himself as like the big thing that I think his videos just gave everybody like a hook to hang their hat on. And you know, if you wanted to know like what is the immersive, or it's there in documentary style, beautifully done. So I can't really give it on a scale how much how lucky I think we are to have not just Tex, but Tex and team, if you want to call it that. Wonderful work, chaps. If you ever see this, Probably not, you probably never will, but if you do, you have my thanks and my admiration. Anyway, I'll leave that here, because again, I wanted to do a positive video this week. Last week's was so... Yeah, it was difficult to do. I felt I had to do it because I felt like there's a lot of mud being flung at Catalyst at the moment, and Catalyst saved us, right? Like, I know there's people out there who are very angry at what they've done. I don't perceive what they've done as a mistake. If you do perceive it as a mistake, is that enough to throw the baby out with the bathwater after everything that they've done over the last 5 years? I would ask you to meditate on that before, answering. Just so you don't kind of fall into somebody else's propagandized view because it fits into their political world. Do you really kind of want to be that person who kind of just causes so much division and angst? You get so much more out of life if you just listen to other people, listen to other people's points of view, try to be understanding. By all means have opinions, right? I'm a very opinionated person myself. But if you can't sit across a table and have a reasonable debate with somebody, then you really are doing it wrong. Anyway, I'll leave it there. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll hopefully catch you again next time.